these topics. And so once we have that, then I would recommend implementing it across school districts and for parents to push for alternative curricula such as the one that's being developed in San Juan Capistrano.
Thank you. Thank you, Trustee Dunn. Trustee Williams.
Okay, you all did great. Thank you so much for being here. Everybody here had comments that struck home. I don't have enough time to ask all the questions, but I'll try and address my questions to people who have not talked. We're going to give you a little bit of silence now. Deborah, I saw you write a lot when Dua was talking. I know you're thinking of something because a lot of your talks are the same. You're talking about inclusivity. You mentioned the process of an anti-bullying program. And I think Dua touched on those issues also. Give me your thoughts on that and tell me what research you have that you want to share with us.
My concern is that bullying's already a problem. When we add a protracted and a promoted agenda and don't allow students on all sides of the issue to talk about it, we're going to have bullying galore and it's going to be a huge problem. I'm concerned that even now, some of our districts don't think they have a problem with bullying, believe it or not. That's why I promote a full year program. And it has to be from the top down, not just the students, not just the parents, not just the teachers. It has to be inclusive of everyone. And when she was speaking, it's a process, inclusivity. These children are going through a process of learning their sexual identity. They need to still be inclusive, and we're talking about children here. In the statistics of the Gallup studies, LGBT is only 4.5% of our population. And that's up from 3.2. It's a very small part of our population. Yet it silences, as she talked about, when one group is silent so another one can speak, those that are faith-based need to be able to talk about it. And there's just such, you see it in the universities where they're blocking out your ability to speak. Anti-bullying programs need to be relational leadership, and it is, I can give you multiple journal articles and I have them in my paper.
So what would that look in a curriculum? Is it something that's taught weekly, monthly? Is it taught in 2-week time period?
Well, here's what we did. Bullying is most prevalent in middle school. At Bear, we created Bear Leadership Clubs where everyone belongs. So you bring in everyone who wants to be part of the group to learn leadership strategies on how to deal with bullying, why it's not appropriate, and how to deal with it. At Stacy Middle School at Westminster School District, we did this program. They took it on and it was fabulous. A student body president changed his mind about boys will be boys bullying because of this club. It teaches them on a weekly or a monthly basis depending on the school.
So there's a curriculum, you start from the top down, and it goes and filters teachers into the classroom, and then you try to change the hearts and minds of the kids.
It's student-led, teacher-energized, parent-approved, community-funded. It's an entire unit. It's a whole school view.
Thank you. Brenda, why does, I was taken by the details of your opening statement. Very well done, a lot of information that I learned from what you were expressing. Why does the state, California, the Department of Education, promote Teen Tom as though it's the all and all for everything? I think they promote it as the best program out there. Is that correct?
Yes,
And why
they
do they
do.
do that?
Honestly, I don't know. There's my answer, I don't know. But there's a lot of things that the California Department of Education, remember, they are part of Ashwig. So there's a lot of things.
What's that?
Okay, I did say it, and it's the adolescent health.
Adolescent
Work.
sexual health, working.
Okay, yeah. The group that actually looks at the rubric and it
It's a
evaluates, it's
it's a state
evaluation
group.
group, yes. But it has representatives from the California Department of Education in there. And I think there was somebody who did speak about the framework from the California Department of Education and some of the definitions that are going to for 2019 go into the California Healthy Youth Act once they become adopted. But I want to point out something that I learned recently that really surprised me, in that I know that Orange County Department of Ed is using Positive Prevention Plus, and we were looking at it as a district as well. And we received something back because I was looking at an older version, and then we received a letter from Positive Prevention Plus that said,
Well, finish your statement. I have that ability to do that.
that they just came up with a new curriculum that was aligned with the new California Health Framework. I said, how could that be when it hasn't been adopted yet? And when I asked the person in my district to please look into it, that person sent me an email back that said they finally answered me back about your question of how their curriculum is aligned with the science framework before its May release. The answer is that one of their curriculum developers is on the committee.
Thank you, Ms. Lindsay. Trustee Gomez.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to be clear that I support parental rights. We as parents have the, don't clap, you're gonna take my time. We have the ability to opt out, and we should be working with our local school district to make sure that we get that information, so that you can make the choice as to whether or not you want your child to participate. Now, my background is in healthcare, and I do support, medically accurate information. It also has to be age appropriate, because there are students that don't understand, can't handle it, and will go home and be confused. But that's where you come in. So I'm gonna ask my expert panel, because I only have a couple minutes, to take maybe 20, 30 seconds, and hopefully we can all make it, just to answer the question, how can parents support this curriculum? Or how can parents support their children in understanding a safe and healthy, sexual education? So I'm gonna start that for a change. If you could just maybe, in your opinion, what would help parents the most?
I think what helps parents the most is to actually be actually mindful and respectful of what their beliefs and what they choose to teach their children at what age. I know a lot of parents would appreciate the help actually in that department. So that working together with the schools and the teachers, being able to see actually the curriculum ahead of time, not just to be out. When I get a permission like that for my children, well, I go like, well, depends. What is it going to be about, right? I want to make an informed decision if I'm opting out or not. My child maybe can benefit from this curriculum, but I don't know what it is. So I think sending that information to parents, and when it comes to these issues, and it's about family values, it's about a lot of different things, and even the bullying, it's not one size fits all. So if we want to make it and try to take an easy way to say, well, everybody, we're going to have this one model and everybody needs to be okay with it. These are issues that are a lot more sensitive to families, to cultures, to religions.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to get to the
Yeah,
rest.
no, definitely.
Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not an educator, and I'm not familiar with the ins and outs of the system. But
But just in your opinion,
I do
what
think
would
that
support
it would
parents?
be vitally important for there to be an honest interaction and working together of educators and parents, so that everybody feels that they can sign on to the curriculum, so there won't be polarization and anger about it, and so on. So all parents need to take into account what they would like their children to be taught and what their values are, and do they feel that the curriculum is respectful and inclusive of that. So there needs to be, and the information on what's in the curriculum needs to be readily available to parents. They're all hard to get. It's a lot of times easy because parents are busy, as are educators, and so is everybody. So, put the cookies on the lower shelf, make it very accessible and easy for them to participate, see what's there, and get their feedback.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I'd like to share with you what the California Department of Education recommends for parents for TK through third grade for the 2019. It's a book called Who Are You? And I'll read just a couple pages. When babies are born, people ask, is it a boy or girl? Babies can't talk, so grown-ups make a guess by looking at their bodies. Some people say there are only two genders, but there are really many genders. I am girl, boy, both, neither, just me. And for some people, there are more than just two choices. There are just a few words people use: trans, genderqueer, non-binary, gender fluid, transgender, gender neutral, agender, new choice, bigender, third gender, two-spirit, and there are even more words people are using to describe their experience. This is called the gender spectrum.
Okay, thank you. I want to move on, so I get to everybody.
So, as Brenda pointed out, the framework makes it very difficult on parents to really be involved and support when that is what's being recommended to read. And also, the ability to opt out is not a solution for parents, especially when legal counsel of the board and the Department of Education and the ACLU is saying parents cannot opt out, and they threaten to sue and bully to sue.
Okay, thank you. Get to you.
Did you hear that, ladies and gentlemen? The ACLU is lying to the school districts.
Trustee Goodell.
Thank you, Meg. Excuse me. My first question is for Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed, could you just give me a very small sentence? There were some things that young people practiced that had a 12-month effect. Did I hear that right? That they were engaged in sexual activity, certain practices lasted for 12 months, and then they faded away.
That's my representative for Fullerton, and he's asleep up there.
Right. In the CSE programs, there weren't any effects that lasted for 12 months.
Pay attention.
We did find, we looked at 17 abstinence programs, abstinence education programs, and a number of those, 47% of them, demonstrated abstaining from sexual activity beyond the 12-month period. Am I getting at your question?
Yes.
So we don't establish that 12-month. That wasn't our rule. That was a rule from the Society for Prevention Research. They said if it's only if the effects of the program last for a week or a month, that's not going to change behavior. It's not going to affect their lives. It's not going to reduce STDs and reduce pregnancies. It's going to be a long-term effect. So 12 months is a minimum. Unfortunately, the CSE programs were not able to produce that.
Well, I guess where I'm coming from, I apologize if I'm not hearing this correctly. Wouldn't you, as a dad, rather have a good 12 months where the child matures and will go on to better decision making? See, that's where I was going. Don't worry about it.
This guy's sitting right under the Wi-Fi router, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, still have a- I was intrigued by what our good colleague in the article, Brenda, this was you, right? Brenda G? Yes. Age, rather. School climate and HIV risk. Fact. Many LGBT youth are at a higher risk for HIV infection, particularly youth of color and transgender youth. Fact. Schools are unsafe, which bother every one of us in this room.
Because that's the goal of this, ladies and gentlemen.
LGBTQ students, which can have a negative impact on health and well-being. Deborah, from your research, who are the most bullied, and I really appreciate your research and the depth that you put in. If you look at panoply of kids, who are the most bullied kids in the school? Is it the quarterback of the team, who is president of the student union, and who is going to Harvard? Who are these kids? This is what concerns me.
Statistics have shown that disabled kids are generally the most bullied. My concern with the LGBT side is that these children are still grappling with the concept. And we
Does
have.
that grappling cause them to be victimized in their school?
Yes, because let me tell you, there's beautiful little boys who seem to be sensitive. They like talking to girls and hanging with the girls and doing sensitive things. The athletes call them sissies, and then it turns to fag. and faggot, and they don't know what that means. So they go, oh, well, then that must be what I am. So then they go and they try to solicit a same-sex person, and they're rejected, and they're devastated. How do they go back from saying I'm gay to saying I'm really just a guy? Kids in that area are having a hard time dealing with it. They need to be accepted as a human being without a label, because they're all grappling with it, and they commit suicide in time.
Exactly. Going to your example, there was a very beautiful 9-year-old boy a few weeks ago committed suicide for exactly the same reason you were stating. And he was very supported by his family and not supported by his school. And the example that you gave, as I hear, was that the perpetrator of that bullying was another male student.
Generally, yeah.
Right. Now, there was a study, maybe you're familiar with this, in the Northbridge area, where they found that girls who were labeled as bullies by their schools, when they brought the mothers in, the mothers basically said, how dare you say that? That's leadership. She's not
Well, I'm a lawyer.
Right. Oh, I'm
Bullying
sorry.
is something I'm taught to do. But sadly, even in our legal profession, a girl is called a bitch, a boy is called aggressive.
Yep.
It's a societal issue.
Your mama.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the Orange County Board of Education meeting in Costa Mesa, California. They're talking about the sex ed curriculum that's being mandated by the state. That's what we're discussing here tonight.
10 years ago, ask our staff members in just one moment to set the alarm for 10 minutes. When you see the yellow light flashing, if you would kindly conclude your conversations, get to your seat, so we can finish up tonight. Thank you very much. We are at
Using Periscope? Are you using Periscope?
The YouTube.
YouTube?
Brenda, we're live. We've got a couple hundred people watching you right now. You got anything to say?
It's good to be here, and I just want kids to be safe.
Come over here against the wall.
and
We get you. It's Brenda Lebsack, ladies and gentlemen. She's a trustee from Orange Unified. You came here with facts tonight, didn't you?
Yes.
Lots of facts.
Yes.
And you handed these facts to the trustees.
That's correct.
What is the most compelling argument against exercising caution with the path these districts are taking? Aside from the fact that we know there's an agenda here, is it the issue of medical inaccuracy? Is that your primary contention?
Medical inaccuracy is huge because the whole goal of comprehensive sex education is to keep kids safe and to prevent STIs, STDs, and HIV. So we need to make sure that the information that they're getting is correct so they can make good choices.
So you pointed out tonight that FDA approval has not been issued for condoms used in anal sex, and yet we're giving children this sense of safety and protection.
Exactly.
They're given
And
a sense of security by the district, by
not only that, but they're not telling them the relative risk, which is 70%. And some people might think, well, 70% isn't bad, but if you think about if you're putting a kid on a roller coaster and the harness only works 70% of the time, that's alarming.
Now,
And
what
that's it feels
implications
like.
does this have for ASKIP, which is the district's cooperative insurance plan, in terms of liability with this issue being basically being false?
That's a really good question.
ASKIP the districts are self-funded and they participate in a pool. ASKIP is the name of the insurance pool. Do you have any comment to that? That's a valid argument.
Somebody would have to come forward and say, I became HIV positive with a false sense of security that condoms were, a great way to stay safe. They would have to come forward and say that and prove it.
But that's what the curriculum is actually doing right now, is it not? Is it not alluding to the fact that condoms are FDA approved by not stating it, but alluding to the fact that it's a safe option for anal sex?
I would say it does allude to it. It doesn't say it.
Yeah, it alludes to it. But to a young, impressionable mind in search of the orgasm, so to speak, they're not going to know the difference between something that it states and something it alludes to.
Most kids don't know what FDA means either, nor do they understand the implication.
This is a really, really serious problem. Ms. Lebsack, I haven't...
Especially since it's a promise to parents in their parent notification.
So the primary goal of the school districts and the administrators, and specifically the principal, is the safety of the children. So I think it would be incumbent upon all of the principals to put a stop to this curriculum immediately and to be further vetted. Now, it was also mentioned here tonight that the ACLU has come in and made some statements, in a sense, bullying people into submitting to the curriculum that actually there is ways out of. Can you speak to that?
You should probably talk to the lawyer on that one.
Okay. Well, I do want to thank you for taking the time to let you speak to these other people, and thank you once again.
All right. I'm glad they let you in.
Are you a reporter? Are you a reporter?
We're live.
I don't want to be good at it.
All right then, buddy.
Are you a reporter?
We're live.
Are you a reporter?
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Are you a reporter?
No. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're live at the Orange County Board of Education meeting here on Calma Street in Costa Mesa, California. And the topic tonight is basically, what are the school districts supposed to do with this law that has been rammed through by this Jesuit Agenda 21 psychopath in the state government called Jerry Brown, that has been ratified by an out-of-control, lawless state assembly and state senate. It's a pretty good crowd here tonight, folks. You can see it's on a break right now. But we have had a coalition of experts, attorneys, and school board members addressing the Orange County Board of Education tonight on the total fallacies and false assurances of what is being taught to children. It is and here's Al Maharis up here. He's the superintendent, the highest paid civil servant in the county, possibly in the state of California, who was paying no attention whatsoever the whole time people were talking. He had his head down. I had the camera on him the whole time, folks. He's the gentleman in the suit there, not the short guy, but the guy between the African-American lady and the flag. And he is the one ultimately responsible for the rollout of the wireless programs, the weaponry that has been deployed in the classrooms, the sex ed curriculum. He is the one that takes the advice from the board and implements the agendas in the schools, ladies and gentlemen. And he's the highest paid elected administrator, I believe, in the state of California, who runs unopposed year after year in elections. He's up there right now, surrounded by some of the district staff. It's ironic that we're here where it says, "In God we trust," ladies and gentlemen. And I wonder if it's the same God that I think they serve. Is it Lucifer, folks? Is it Lucifer that these people serve, where they teach atheism, where they teach all kinds of vile perversion, all kinds of lies about what we live on, how we got here? How is it that these people live with themselves? You can see Mr. Maharis right there. Looks like he's ready to go have himself a cup of coffee or something. And he's leaving the room right now. Back to what's going on, folks. This is a meeting tonight in Orange County, California at the Orange County Department of Education. This is a rather nebulous organization. Most people don't even know it exists. And for the most part, what's going on here tonight is an informational presentation that was designed and called for by a majority of the board to discuss this issue of the sex ed in the classrooms, folks. And it goes all the way from kindergarten all the way to high school. We've got law enforcement, we've got teachers, we've got activists, we've got people that are outside that are protesting the fact that there's a large turnout of Christians and parents here. There was a large rally outside earlier in opposition to our opposition to this issue. And what we need to do, folks, is we need to make everybody realize that what your children are being taught in school is not true. What you need to realize is that these people that are running these school districts are actually pushing agendas that are coming from above. I want everyone to notice the flag with the gold tassel, ladies and gentlemen. And I want everybody to understand that the state flag and the American flag both have gold tassels on them in this room. Notice the number of Wi-Fi routers on the ceiling. Everything the school district does works in unison with UNESCO, the United Nations, and the international agendas of eugenics. One of the things that is not being discussed here tonight, but is extremely important and bears mentioning, is the fact that the classrooms, yes, very good, that's a sign of admiralty law, ladies and gentlemen. In this room, these proceedings and the decisions made are under maritime law, and that's why there's no regard for the Constitution, folks. That's what's going on here. I wanted to bring up an issue that I want to touch on, and that is that these classrooms are weaponized, ladies and gentlemen. They're weaponized with microwave weaponry that has been deployed by the people on this board, by the people in other school districts, and we understand what the purpose of microwave systems in the classroom is. It is a product of an agenda to depopulate the United States, and it starts with the youngest of the youngest. If you'll notice in the classrooms, in the Orange County Department of Education's jurisdiction, the technology rollout began with the kindergartners first. The younger grades got the technology before the high schools. The weaponry has been aimed at the children, folks, and I want to tell you something. These kids have no idea what's being done to them. These kids have no idea what these adults are allowing to happen to them. And these people that work for the school district, for the most part, have sold themselves out. There are a handful of board members that have come and stood up against this curriculum. What's happening right now is the ACLU is going around bullying school districts into going along with curriculum that's not medically accurate, that's not factual, and threatening to sue these districts if they don't hurry up and adopt this curriculum. When we found out tonight that some people involved in this curriculum development actually sit on the committees approving it. So there was conflict of interest and agenda left and right, folks. But what's going on in these classrooms is criminal, because we have multiple things happening to the children, folks. And one of the biggest problems we face with these kids is the intentional lying to them about the ramifications of poor decisions when it comes to deviant sexual behavior, when it comes to sexual behavior that's not normal. They're telling these kids that what they're allowed to do is going to be safe as long as they use something to cover their mouth or something to cover their organs. Ladies and gentlemen, these kids are not going to keep these things on when they go into action. And this is really all about lowering the age of consent, ladies and gentlemen. This is all about lowering the age of consent. It is about traumatizing these children. This curriculum, the way it has been rolled out in some school districts, is child abuse, ladies and gentlemen. And you've got all aspects of the media promoting things that, in my opinion, are child abuse, which should be punishable by law, ladies and gentlemen. What we need to, these are people here tonight. You can see this room. There's a pretty good turnout here. There are a lot of people here. There are people here from the district. There are people here from legal representative organizations. You have people from churches. You have people from the PTA. You just have people here that are activists. But what they need to all understand is this is an agenda, folks. This is an agenda to get the legs of the Bible broken, one toe at a time. It starts with what they teach in terms of creation. It continues on in terms of geology, in terms of anthropology, in terms of sociology, in terms of ecology, and in terms of science. And then they move on to the esoteric and move into the ritual abuse of children, which is what this curriculum is really designed to get children to become acclimated to, so they can be abused as the adults become their consensual partners. That is the goal of the comprehensive sex education, ladies and gentlemen. It is ultimately to lower the age of consent of children. And we know, and there are countries out of the United States that have the age of consent. They want that lowered down to age 11 or 12. It is unbelievable. I cannot believe what they have up on the wall here, folks. It says, "In God we trust." It's absolutely amazing. And I guess we're going to have to reconvene here. People are going to take their seats and we're going to continue the discussion. I think we're going to go into some public comments. This is really a scary thing that I have to spend a Wednesday night here Because the problem is, I've got a family at home, and there's a whole bunch of people that have no idea that this stuff is going on. They're working 2 and 3 jobs just to pay their rent. They have no idea what's being taught to their children. They're teaching these kids all the way down to kindergarten that your sexual identity is not something you were born with, and that there are basically many choices for you to make when you grow up. By the time you make these choices, sometimes it's far too late. You don't realize that it's too late to change what you've done. I'm going to reiterate once again, this room is full of people here tonight, folks, and it is all about pushing an agenda on children. These people right here are caught in the crosshairs. These are elected board members, people that are trustees. Now, the district, the Board of Education for the County of Orange, there's a majority on this board that actually did the right thing and had the votes to agendize an honest discussion here tonight. And we've got a panel of experts here that have done a great job, ladies and gentlemen. These people have done their homework, and as you can see, okay, the meeting's being called back to order, so we're going to allow them to reconvene. I want to thank you for staying with us. I think what we'll do at this point is we'll take a chair. All right, folks, this meeting's reconvening, so we'll go ahead and get up here so we can get some good audio. Looks like we're back, so I'm going to switch the camera around, ladies and gentlemen, so stay tuned. We'll have some good audio.
We will begin our second round of trustee questions with Dr. Goodell.
I guess my concern is that all children, regardless of their age, regardless of what they define themselves, feel safe. That they're not bullied, that they can learn unencumbered by anybody's label. And I guess I'm concerned that that doesn't happen. I think the very bright are stigmatized. I think the very beautiful and the handsome are stigmatized. Yes. I think, and that happened to me a lot. And seriously, I think that the children of today deserve whatever we can do. And I understand that a principal or a teacher can't be everywhere on the side at all times. And there's going to be some kid that's going to go after somebody. That said, I think it's incumbent upon us as parents and grandparents to be sure that we give them cushions and give them the best knowledge so that they don't become hateful, mean people. And I'm concerned, in all candor, that there are some kids who are going to be more likely hated and demeaned. And it may be because of their religion. Maybe because of their sexual orientation. I just think one of the things I hope we take away from tonight is that every child has dignity, regardless how he or she...
Then why do the school districts take it away from these kids with what they teach them?
And I think just as we've seen, and I can tell you as a university person, I have seen contrary views squashed, so I get that, and alternative views squashed. But I think these are little people, and I think all of us bear a responsibility. And I don't think that's Pollyanna, because I think what parents say in the home sets the stage. Sets the stage. And if some kid used, I can tell you if any of my children or grandchildren, or much less my business than my children were, ever used the N-word or the F-word, they knew it would hit them. All right, and I don't mean physically, but they would really pay a price for that kind of language. And I think it starts at home. And I'm going to go back to Trustee Gomez's question. One of the things that I really hope people walk away from this meeting tonight is parents have a great deal of power at 27 local school districts in this county. And one of the things you can do It's nice to talk about it and moan and groan. But if you have kids in school, you find out who's on the curriculum selection committee by those parents. Because that's where you can really
Half the
have-
students'
we
parent don't
have
speak English.
absolutely
This is
nothing to
impossible.
say That Irvine uses, I understand, pieces of teen talk. It is simply.
Parents are not paying attention.
It's your purview if you live in Irvine. And that's where I come from. And I hope that's what you walk away from tonight. Also, Dr. Williams and I were talking to break, not violating the Brown Act. Also, if you have suggestions for amending that law, go for it. And one of the things that I've read.
Might as well talk to the fluorescent lights on the ceiling.
I don't think it's very clear on is in how to do opt-out for parents who may not be as well educated as some others. So for me, one of the takeaways I'm gonna have is I'm gonna talk to see some legislators, what can we do to make opt-out so people feel more comfortable that they can opt out and the legislation. So I just don't want this to be a moan and groan session, I want outcomes. So that's getting involved in the local district and dealing with the people who create the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Vidal. Trustee Gomez.
Thank you. This is, well, I'd like to continue with my other question, if I could get Dr. Reed and Ms. Riesedorf to answer about how parents can support the sex education for their students. Dr. Reed, can I start with you?
Sure. The first red flag that I would look for is a program that does not mention parents. If there's a curriculum out there that's bypassing the parents, they're concerned that the parents aren't gonna like it, and they leave them out. That would be my first red flag. Now, in addition to what was said earlier, I want to add this thought. We've developed a program, it's a character education program for K through 6. It has 5 learning steps in it, one of which is a learning link with parents. It ties the curriculum experience in the classroom and partners with the parents in a very meaningful way. And what we're finding is that, of course, some parents are more serious about it than others. But the ones who take that seriously have a huge impact. For better or for worse, parents are the biggest effect on our kids' lives. And if programs ignore that, bypass them, they're making a huge mistake.
School districts have multi-generationally destroyed the family
I would tell parents, use your opt-out
by
wisely.
teaching atheism.
Age appropriate is important. I blindly opted out my children in middle school, and my 35-year-old daughter says, Mom, you didn't tell me what I needed to know. I didn't talk to my kids about the real issues. I didn't make it a safe, free place for them to talk about issues I didn't want to talk about. If we're going to opt out, we have to talk to our kids. There are societal issues that have to be addressed. If it's a safe curriculum, use your opt-out wisely.
All right, thank you. I'd like to, unfortunately, we're seeing so much of this in the news, and it's, it's kind of a little bit of an overkill, but what about the relationship between sex education and sexual assault? I'm going to ask, who was it? I'm going to ask Ms. Alwan if you could maybe address that in terms of, bullying and maybe what you have seen.
The difference between, the difference you're asking about?
How does it impact? Does sex education have an impact on sexual assault, or hopefully the lack of?
So something that I wanted to kind of, again, going beyond the labels, I think what's really important is that students see the value of themselves and of others. So if we actually take our identities to be actually our sexual identity, and that's kind of going to consume the students and how they call each other and what they do, I think it really does open the door for transgression and for unwelcoming, because you know what, if not everybody's allowed to express themselves also, then where some students are already, based on what we've heard today, they are feeling inferior in the classroom when these discussions are going on. So you can just, think about the unwelcome, right? So are students feeling inferior to also be silent when things are unwelcome that they face? So I feel like shifting the conversation from becoming centered around the identity, the sexual identity of the child, to actually their knowledge, their character, their skills, is a lot more important. I really think that there's a lot more to a human being than their sexuality only, or even, I mean, the same thing when there's racism, right? When seeing someone only as their race and people are picked on. I think when you open the door to that, yes, you will see a lot more harassment because it's unwelcome and it's being taught as something to explore with. So who are they exploring with? Maybe the silent students.
Okay, I think I only have like a minute left. So I'm going to ask, Dr. Haynes, you kept talking about gender distress. What's the research on that?
Well, would you like the research of what leads to it, or what would you like to know?
Well, tell me about it.
Okay.
Tell me where the research is coming from that indicates that children are encouraged to change their gender at an early age, because you mentioned that.
Yeah.
So I was
Okay, so several organizations.
Starts in the textbooks.
Say that children overwhelmingly.
Which organizations?
I'm gonna list them. The
Okay.
American Psychiatric Association, the American
Psychiatric
Psychological Association, the Endocrine Society, and its 6 co-sponsoring endocrine and medical organizations in the United States and the United Kingdom all agree that children overwhelmingly outgrow their sexual identity distress, if allowed to.
okay. Thank you.
If allowed to. And the school district is going to be involved in
So my
stopping
question is very similar
them
to my.
to be able to outgrow it.
Right. This last August.
That's the
Brown
purpose of the
University
legislation,
researcher, and this is gonna be
to traumatize the children.
Published a study describing teens and young adults who do not have symptoms of gender dysphoria during childhood, but were observed by their parents to rapidly develop gender dysphoria symptoms over days, weeks, months, or during and after puberty. Could you, I think that's an absolutely incredible study. It was polled, for whatever reason, by Brown University. Could you explain why?
Well, Dr. Littman was collecting research from parents who were reporting that they had children, and particularly daughters, who had never expressed any distress over being female. But then they started looking at, and parents were saying, you know what, I don't think my child is really transgender. I think that they're upset and disturbed about some other things. They're having some trouble, and they're latching on to this as the solution. And, but if I call a psychologist for help with this, as soon as I get on the phone, I hear, oh yes, we deal with this all the time, come in, I'll write the letter to the doctor to start them on this path of, say, everything that I just listed, okay? The pre-puberty blockers, the cross-sex hormones, the breast being removed as adolescents, and so on. Being sterilized potentially for life, and so on. So, the parents were reporting to her that they were feeling up against just so much a wall of an agenda in the schools, in the media, in entertainment, etc. I mean, to the point that people think that Gallup said people think 23% of the population is LGBT when their actual figure was 3.8 in that study. So, and they thought that
And
was
that
because
percentage has
of the
remained
media. So,
consistent in spite of the
social
media attempts to drive it into orbit.
Is a factor that is coming forward as a great concern and a focus that is needing rigorous research. Unfortunately, there is a pushback against such research being done. Some people don't want this idea to be in people's minds. They don't want people to think of this as a factor. And they got her research pulled, even though it was peer-reviewed and there's nothing, no one said there was anything wrong with the research. They just thought it wasn't good for civil rights. And this is where we get into theories about sexual orientation, gender identity, and what will help civil rights. And these theories can lead to problems and polarization, and so on.
Can I just comment? I know that study of.
Can you believe we're actually having this discussion?
Social contagion, there's a lot of research on social contagion, right? And it's very legitimate research. I read this study as well. more studies need to be done in this particular context in terms of social media use and what's going on in terms of gender identity issues. So that was a relatively small study, about 260 people or something like that. So it might be a picture into what's happening, but much more research needs to be done rather than squelched. Knowledge is power, information is power, which is why we're having this, so that all the parents and the families in Orange County can have more information about research on these very topics and the science behind it. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. So my suggestion would be that to rely on that social contagion research and show all the research out there on the social media use and what happened in other contexts, and then we can compare that because we know similar results in other contexts to this context. But obviously more research needs to be done.
Right, so you took 2 minutes of my time.
That's not fair. That's bullying.
Honestly, folks, this is no laughing matter.
Okay.
This is not funny.
This will be my final question. I want to thank everybody again for being here. Many of you have flown and come from many parts of this nation, this country, to be here, and I so appreciate it. And you guys have been awesome, provided me with a lot of information. So my last question is going to go to you, Dr. Weed. I've always been someone who has promoted the concept of abstinence. Abstinence is defined as delaying sexual activity as long as one can until you have a more permanent relationship. In your review of the 17 studies, you said there was something about a higher standard outcomes and that the 12-month period was important. So does abstinence education really work? And how is it superior over than the concept of comprehensive sex education, which inculcates and teaches kids how to engage in sexuality? It's a big contrast.
Yeah, the 17 studies that we looked at, we didn't select these. These were selected by those agencies that I talked about earlier. So we didn't cherry pick these. And of those, about half of them had an effect on delaying sexual initiation, sexual debut, for at least a year. The question I think maybe is worth pursuing is that what is it in the effective programs that's maybe different than the ones that were less effective? How do we distinguish the differences? Let me give you some examples. The effective programs were ones that didn't rely on the old paradigm of more information makes for better decisions with kids. That's a poor paradigm. It doesn't work. What does work? We've identified at least a half a dozen key predictors of risk behavior. And when programs incorporate these effectively, they reduce initiation, sexual debut by at least half, maybe up to 70%. What are they? The first one is what we call future impact, future orientation. They see sexual behavior and sexual activity as an impediment, as a barrier to future options and opportunities. Career, education, marriage and family. They recognize that problem. The second one is what we call their value system, their sense of what's good and bad, right and wrong, important and not important. That affects their behavior. A third one, we call it justification. Kids are good at rationalizing, and to the extent to which they can rationalize and justify sexual behavior, they engage in it. So programs that target that directly and help them with critical thinking, they're more effective. Another one, independence from peers. They are able to recognize negative influences and reject it. Those are some examples. And it's not just one of those that's going to make a program effective. All of them combined together create this huge impact on initiation of sexual activity. 60 to 70% reduction.
So what happens when a teacher takes out a banana and brings a condom and says, this is how you use it?
Yeah. Well, I mentioned earlier that there are no programs that have demonstrated an ability to change behavior when they teach both of those things side by side. Those are incompatible messages. Why are they incompatible? Well, one message says sex is normal, natural, healthy, and you ought to engage in it when you can, with whom you can, and here's how to have it more pleasurable. Okay, that's the underlying philosophy behind most comprehensive sex education programs. Abstinence education has a different philosophy that says abstinence of sexual activity is normal and healthy at the right time and in the right place with the right person in a committed relationship. Those two things are not messages that work together in the same classroom and in the same program. And so you can't do them both. I think that's one of the problems. California law. They think you can do both of those things. It's not possible.
I think I've
The
done.
legislature is run by insane criminals, ladies and gentlemen.
Trustee Barton.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to my sort of original theme of what is really bothering, I think, families is what's being taught, they don't know what's being taught, what's legal, illegal. So I think transparency is the other thing. And Dr. Lee brought it up with anytime a parent
The
doesn't know
ACLU
something,
needs to
it's
stop
concerned.
bullying
So
the school districts.
How can we get more transparency? And anybody who thinks they have a great answer can answer. Brenda, I'm thinking because you're a trustee, maybe you could tell us how that works in your world, because that's where it's implemented. How can we make sure there is transparency?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I think Dr. Bedell wrote a letter to all the districts that gave some great admonishment, but also ideas for putting things on website, making it easily accessible, so they don't have to jump through hoops, you know, parents don't have to take off work, putting it online so they can view it at their pleasure rather than being breathed down their neck while they're looking at it and feeling uncomfortable. Those are some ways. I think transparency is very important. I want to share something with you because I did mention in my first speech about a political agenda, and that's kind of a power-packed word, but there is something going on here, and I do get from Gleason, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Educators Network, and they have here that the main objective is for male and female cisgender and heterosexuality should not be considered the norm because that view is discriminatory. Heteronormativity is an assumption that heterosexual identity is the norm, which plays out in interpersonal interactions and institutional privileges that further the marginalization of lesbian, gay, bisexual, asexual, and queer people. Cisnormativity, the assumption that cisgender identity is the norm, which plays out in interpersonal interactions and institutional privileges that further the marginalization of transgender people. This goes along with transparency because this is the goal. They are stating the goal is to change the norm.
So any thoughts on how we can make it more transparent? Does anybody want to jump in?
I think, as Brenda said, making the curriculum more accessible. I mean, even me as a lawyer, knowing the Freedom of Information Act, trying to see the actual curricula from different school districts is a challenge. I mean, some districts get very defensive.
Especially with the ACLU bullying everybody.
And so they try to hide some of this, and it's difficult. I mean, it takes a few of our staff members to have to continue to check in, to cite the law that allows parents and community members to review the different curricula. And so having it on a website that parents can view it, and just having the trust between schools and parents. I think, we're all on the same side. Teachers, they care about children. So just to take away that divisiveness and for us all to be like-minded on one page and to not have secrets.
I think that would be, to me, that would make people so happy that every district had to have it on their website. They had to be transparent, so every child or every parent knew exactly what was taught. I think it would give a lot.
May I just second that? I'm not from California. I wasn't familiar with what you're using here, but I went online to check out some of the titles of these programs that I was given were part of the choices. And none of them had any thorough explanation of what was in the curriculum. They had an outline, very brief stuff, and none of them had any evidence that I could find anyway that demonstrated that they were effective. I think one of the challenges ought to be to the state superintendent of public schools. He claims, for example, in his letter that, what does he say here? This is a quote from his letter. The purpose of the California Healthy Youth Act is to provide every student with the knowledge and skills necessary to protect their sexual and reproductive health from unintended pregnancy, human immunodeficiency virus, and sexually transmitted infections. The letter further states, implementation of the California Healthy Youth Act will provide the necessary health education and skill building to protect our students. Now that's a huge promise. Where's the evidence? I would require the state superintendent to produce the evidence, say we can't implement any program that hasn't been proven effective.
And yet the ACLU is running around bullying the
You won't
schools.
find any that are effective.
And the ACLU is bullying all the school districts right now as we speak, and they're accepting this.
Students are feeling frustrated about what's happened this year. Two quick questions, and I know my time, I already took some of Dr. Williams' time, so just answer which one of these two you want. First of all, we know from the research that the frontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex, is not developed till, early to mid-20s, right? And so that ties into this idea of what is age appropriate for this curriculum. Obviously, it's required in 7th grade, middle school, it's required in high school. It may be implemented in K-6, so that's the first part of the question. The second part of the question is, to what extent are districts required to report who is teaching the curriculum? Is it the kid's own science teacher in middle school? Is it the kid's own health ed teacher in high school? Or is it outside sources that are being pulled into the districts? So I'll throw those two questions and go.
Well, as I laid out before, the transgender identity at any age, especially in a minor, is inappropriate because it lends them down an enormously destructive path for their body and their health and leads them to a high rate of completed suicide.
That's what the ACLU wants.
And no minor is capable of giving consent to being led down that path.
That's what these laws are all about, changing the consent age.
And we also do know that sexual orientation is also still developing over time. There is evidence that teenagers have quite a capacity for change in their sexual attraction or behavior. 42% of men who ever experienced same-sex behavior experienced it before age 18 and not after. There's other evidence that close to half of exclusively same-sex attracted boys become heterosexual a year later, between 16 and 17 years old. There's some evidence for that. So there are multiple studies saying that there's change in sexual orientation and quite a lot of it. And if you label somebody, again, in this area, and you put them in an LGBT group that is an influence, and you give them affirming education, those are social factors in themselves
That establish
that
the
can
identity.
influence the direction of development. And there's a lot of natural shifting away, toward or to heterosexuality if you don't have that going on. So I think there's a reason to question whether any of this is appropriate for minors.
Does anyone want to take the second question?
Yes, I'll take that.
It's an
Dr.
agenda,
Clark.
ladies and
So
gentlemen.
section 51936 of the California Healthy Youth Act states that school districts may contract with outside consultants, guest speakers, to deliver comprehensive sexual health education. And some school districts do bring in outside speakers. And sometimes it is from special interest groups, from Planned Parenthood. But also it can be from someone who has evidence-based, safe curriculum. And so other people can come into the schools. Parents don't have to give notice, don't have to be given notice as to who is presenting this.
That's an important point right there, ladies and gentlemen.
But that's something that you can do as a board,
No
and that
notification.
local school districts can do. They can pass policies to allow notice, as to who is coming in to give this curriculum to their children.
It's all about pedophilia, ladies and gentlemen. That's what this is all about.
At this time, we will allow each panel member 5 minutes, up to 5 minutes, to address their closing remarks to the board and the audience. Is that
There's
all
the guy in
you should
charge
have,
of it
please?
right there.
Yes, definitely.
Maharis.
It's actually ironic thinking that, I'm specifically supposed to be speaking about inclusion, and while the voices that support the AB 329 decides to pull out, right, and cancel their speakers. And I ask that since this law affects all of us, if we can't manage to actually hear this discussion and answer questions, I don't know how we can expect our students to respect one another and treat each other fairly. Some of you might remember when evolution was taught in schools as the only option for years. What does it harm to those who believe in evolution to let others believe in a different theory?
That's right.
When the school curriculum introduced creationism, no one was forced to change their opinion or feel inferior. It is not the job of the law to police family values and identity classifications. As a targeted faith community, we know that this is not the first or the last law that attempts to limit our rights and goes against the Constitution, unfortunately. So growing up in Saudi Arabia, public school, government had a law. I'm drawing this parallel because none of the nations that I actually lived around and traveled to wake up one day and have a dictatorship. It's a process that people slip into, and it's a very dangerous one. I think we need to appreciate our democracy. So the government in Saudi Arabia had a law that girls don't play sports. Outrageous, right? But isn't that just a form of assigning gender classification? It's a fact that more males enjoy Monday Night Football than females. That law is still outrageous. The government also mandates by law that girls attending public schools have to wear all black. Sounds oppressive. Well, it is. Policing people's emotions, likes and dislikes, choices of personal expression is the same as policing family values and what parents want to practice and teach their children. Years of research and data had actually already proven that through inclusivity, when you actually achieve inclusivity, it will yield a positive environment for everyone, less bullying and discrimination, and better academic achievements. Students will have higher grades when they feel that they are included. And this is very important because to achieve inclusivity, you have to actually have a system of reward and accountability. Meaning that if a student or a teacher stops bullying, there has to be a system of reward. There has to be accountability when an incident goes by unhandled. So this is otherwise inclusivity becomes this really kind of nice things to have, but we really don't have time for it. As a nation, we have a rich history of expanding the inclusion of different underrepresented groups, being inclusive of girls in schools, of black students, bilingual students, Catholics, Jews, disabled students, etc. Even though we still have a long way to go to achieve equity in education, we made great progress by being inclusive. Given our track record as a nation, students with various gender identities and sexual orientations will be included. And it is possible to achieve their inclusion without infringing on parents' rights, religious rights, and the need to silence anyone. I encourage everyone here to go home and Google the video, Brown Eyes, Blue Eyes, to witness how quickly children turn to bullying their own friends the minute they were assigned labels. It affected their self-image, their friendships, and their academics. No law and none of us will ever have full control of what children learn at home or their places of worship. So rather than diverting energy into policing parents, our students deserve every effort to ensure that they graduate knowing that it is part of our humanity to have varying experiences and viewpoints, which will make our future brighter. Schools should be a safe place for all students, the ones who identify on the gender spectrum and the ones who don't. Thank you.
Dr. Haynes.
I want to say that promoting certain theories of sexual orientation and gender identity leads to a lot of trouble. There was a comprehensive review of research on sexual orientation and on civil law for people of same-sex sexuality, and was conducted by Dr. Lisa Diamond. She is an avowed lesbian, a political activist, and she's the co-editor-in-chief of the APA Handbook of Sexuality and Psychology, which the American Psychological Association has given its imprimatur and declared authoritative. It said its editors and authors are among its most respected members. And Dr. Diamond is both a co-editor-in-chief and an author of chapters. So she is one of the American Psychological Association's most respected researchers, and her area of expertise is spontaneous change in sexual orientation, which she says frequently occurs. And her co-author was Professor Clifford Brodsky, who won the Equality Award from the Human Rights Campaign, which is a very large LGBT political activist organization. These two said that through their in their study that there has been an agenda to promote the idea that sexual orientation is inborn, can't change, and can't be chosen. And so this is unscientific, and they give ample research on this, and that it harms LGBT people because some feel that they do have some choice. Some feel their sexual orientation is a choice. In fact, they call it a sexual preference instead of a sexual orientation. And yet anyone who says that can get bullied by the LGBT community. They said, you know, we're in that way. There was we're in that way is absolutely not true. Most of the public thinks it is. Commonly believed perception. And that sexual orientation, of course, can change. And she should know she did a 10-year longitudinal study on women who had same-sex sexuality. And she said at the beginning of the 10 years, two women could be equally same-sex attracted and strongly so, and at the end of 10 years, one would have settled down with a woman, one would be happily married to a man. What happened in between? Well, she said one stayed in her lesbian social reference group, and she solidified her interest in same-sex, and she settled down with a woman. The other one left her LGBT group in college. She went into a male-dominated career. She had relationships with men, and she became less interested in seeking out same-sex attractions, and her opposite-sex attraction solidified, and she became happily married to a man. So yes, sexual orientation can change, and social context affects it. Not only cultural values changing, but the social context the individual puts themselves in. And Chaya is a social context that in itself affects people's choices. And she said the women who went from being lesbian to having a relationship with a man were bullied by their lesbian community for leaving and for changing. So theories about sexual orientation and gender identity can get us into lots of trouble. They can harm LGBT people and transgender people. They can, obviously, we know, they can polarize parents who are involved in this curriculum. And I think it is really best to try to have as few theories about sexual orientation and gender identity in a curriculum as possible for everyone's welfare.
Thank you.
You all still have your blue folders, right?
We do.
Okay, good. Besides the California Department of Education breaking promises to parents about the guarantee that FDA methods would be taught for HIV prevention, and the medical inaccuracies in the top recommended curriculum by Ashwig, of which California Department of Ed representatives were included, I would also like to point out a misrepresentation of parental views by the ACLU. Please see Exhibit I.
Here it comes,
It's a
folks.
toolkit to parents written by the ACLU. It states that 89% of parents in California approve of comprehensive sex education in context of the California Healthy Youth Act. After reading the top recommended middle school curriculum, this statistic surprised me. There were some concepts in the curriculum most people had never heard before, such as gender spectrum, meaning you can be both genders, neither gender, gender fluid, and that gender possibilities are unlimited. Pansexuality, defined in Teen Talk as, quote, someone who is sexually attracted to men, women, non-binary people, trans people, genderqueer people, and many more, ! Unquote. And then anal sex, oral sex on anus, dental dams, etc. Because I found this stat hard to believe, I contacted the professor from Berkeley who conducted the study. Dr. Norman Constantine graciously sent me the 24-page parent survey and data results. I emailed this extensive study to all of the Orange County Department of Ed board members. Interestingly enough, I did not find any questions about gender identity, gender spectrum, pansexuality, asexuality, anal sex, or oral sex on anus. Some of the most controversial parts of this new sex ed were never mentioned in the 24-page survey. Then I saw the study was conducted in 2007. AB 329 was passed in 2015, implemented in 2016. How could these new curriculum contents from 2015 even be represented in a 2007 study? I don't think some of these words even existed in 2007. ACLU obviously misrepresented California parents in their approval ratings of the California Healthy Youth Act by inaccurately quoting this 2007 Berkeley study, and they quote it frequently. Exhibit I provides evidence of this. Which are letters buried in the district showcasing the 89% of parental approval stat. So here's my question. Is it right to follow a law that's based on unkept promises to parents, a misrepresentation of parental views, and most of all, a top recommended curriculum which places students in harm's way of an incurable disease such as HIV due to medically inaccurate information? President Barack Obama stated in one of his speeches, "Now we may hope that our leaders and our government stand up for our ideals, stand up for what's right." And here, there are many times in our history when that's occurred. But when our laws, when our leaders, and our government are out of alignment with those ideals, then the dissent of ordinary Americans may prove to be one of the truest expressions of patriotism. I agree full-heartedly with President Obama's statement, because one of our most valued ideals is to protect the health of our children. May we all express true patriotism and stand for what's right.
Thank you, members of the board and Superintendent Harris. Your job is not an easy job, and I just thank you for your sacrifice of time, energy. I know it can be energy draining and stressful, and it is a calling to be on this board, so I thank you so much, and all of us, on behalf of all the people here, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for caring about our children and for listening to everyone. I'd like to echo Dr. Vidal's comments about not letting this just be a moan and groan session, but about taking action. Parents to review curriculum, to attend local board meetings, to know your rights to opt out, and to rise up when you're told otherwise. And to ask your local districts to pass policies that clarify that you can opt out of all sex ed, that you can opt out of controversial topics even outside the context of sex ed, and for local districts to pass policies not to teach sex ed to kindergarten through 6th grade, because that's optional. And also to push for alternative curriculum. And finally, parents to go to your local school board meetings, ask them to put the curriculum online, to pass policies that it will be continue to be online once it's updated or changed. And as an example to the 27 local districts under your purview, you can pass these policies. I know that you don't have control of the local districts, but you are an example to each and every school district in your purview. And as for bullying, that is something that we all agree on. And parental rights and instruction against bullying and inclusion are not exclusive. We can have both. Schools have a duty to protect every child against bullying and harassment, and they have full authority to prevent bullying and discipline anyone who engages in it. Unfortunately, anti-bullying education has a lot of times very little to do with stopping kids from bullying. Instead, it's often been co-opted as an opportunity to instruct children about gender identity, ideology, and similar controversial topics.
To
That's
lower
why
the
even when
age
those
of
topics are
consent.
discussed, parents should be notified to determine whether they are comfortable with the school exposing their child to these things, and whether a parent would prefer to talk to their child about bullying in a manner that does not expose them to gender identity ideology before a child is mature enough to understand it. And so I would encourage you, the board members, to take all this information, consider it, and also think about what policies that you can pass, both for the Orange County schools that are in your purview and also for the 27 local school districts who are looking to you as an example.
Thank you, Ms. Aguirre. Ms. Rystra.
Can I say ditto, ditto, ditto? You know, the question on sexual assault I must address as a sexual harassment attorney, Trustee Gomez. The curriculum that I heard tonight and what I've done does not teach about how to have a healthy sexual welcome relationship. That concerns me for the safety of our children because their prefrontal cortex is not ready for that. Excellent question. Based on my ongoing research and experience and studies, I can confidently tell you that the best counteraction to bullying behaviors is empathy and mindful behavior. Behavioral scientists will tell us that when we can increase the frequency of positive behavior to the extent that there's no time for bad behavior, we've been successful. And just as Trustee Dr. Bedell says, what parents say at home set the stage. When we have conversations with our children, they have to be mindful and with empathy. As recent as 2016, UCLA led a study of 7,000 students in 77 schools and determined that one program was more effective in reducing bullying among sixth graders. It significantly improved self-esteem and reduced depression. In the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology, they identified a program from Finland, which included role-playing exercises to teach students empathy and leadership courage to intervene safely and observe bullying incidents. Schools with zero tolerance were found not to be effective. That's why at BEAR we support the leadership clubs. And there was a school in our own county that had athletes daily walking through the halls intimidating non-athletes. Often they were disabled or LGBT students. Shoulder bumping is what the teachers told me. I go, oh, so buddy to buddy? Oh no. So we created Honor the Brand. Honor the Brand builds solidarity in the school. It involves the administrators, teachers, parents, students, and the community in talking about one central theme. Y'all remember your high school mascot?
Yes.
I was a Charger, mighty, mighty Charger. We all gather and rally around that. What if all the football players went to the theater events? What if the theater students went to the baseball events? What if the baseball students went to the basketball? Everybody becomes united under the theme of our mascot, Honor the Brand. I'd like you to look at our program, parents, because you're the ones who get it in. And BEAR does not promote LGBT as a privilege. It's an encompassing inclusion that all students are treated with fairness and support. So programs that bring the message you want your children to have are the kinds of programs you need to get into your schools. So it's together that we make a difference.
Thank you, Ms. Weisbrot. Dr. Lee.
I read parts of the letter from the State Superintendent of Public Education, and particularly drew attention to his implied promise that kids are going to be protected under this policy. I would say to him, to meet that promise, my recommendation is that the state superintendent of public instruction require that any sex education program being proposed for use in school classrooms within their jurisdiction must meet the same credible standards we use to identify effective programs. Standards based on the science of prevention research. And I've already listed those, you know what they are. It's not enough to hope that the promise of the California Healthy Youth Act will just happen. Parents deserve to know that proposed solutions have been rigorously tested and have produced credible evidence that they will fulfill the promise. The field of prevention research has developed standards that can provide this credible evidence. And we have examined and reported on the existing research for school-based sex education programs using these standards. We recommend that the state superintendent make use of this information in fulfilling their responsibility to protect the health and well-being of the students for whom they have stewardship. I mentioned also earlier that we've seen absence education programs, not all of them work, but about half of them have, which is an improvement over 15 years, 20 years ago when maybe 10% of them worked. It's been an evolving process to learn how to do this and to do it well and be effective. I'm reminded that this may be outside the mainstream today, but the CDC said this: abstinence from vaginal, anal, and oral intercourse is the only 100% effective way to prevent HIV, other STDs, and pregnancy. The correct and consistent use of male latex condoms can reduce the risk of STD transmission, including HIV infection. I'm still quoting. However, no protective method is 100% effective, and condom use cannot guarantee absolute protection against any STD or pregnancy. So why would we want to propose kids something that is less than 100% effective? Now, critics say that abstinence education is shame-based, it's not effective, and yet on the other hand, they want to include it with condom and contraceptive education. The logic escapes me. If they think it's such a terrible approach, why combine it? I'll tell you why. Because it makes their approach more palatable to parents. Oh yeah, we teach abstinence, it's in there. The version of abstinence that you see in some of these programs will embarrass you. Another criticism about these programs is that they say, well, you're teaching values, you should be teaching values. We teach values all the time. We teach values about bullying. We teach values about the environment and protecting it. We teach kids to be responsible. Don't use drugs. Those are all values that we teach. Why would we not want to teach them values about their sexual behavior? Let me close with this quote. You remember the name Albert Einstein? Fairly bright guy. Here's what he said. The most important human endeavor is the striving for morality in our actions. Our inner balance and even our very existence depend on it. Only morality in our actions can give beauty and dignity to life. Thanks very much.
Thank you, members of the panel, and thank you to the audience for your enthusiastic and polite participation. I'm going to turn the meeting back over to President Dr. Williams.
Very good. Thank you, Maggie. You're awesome. You did a wonderful job. Thank you to my... Thank you, you six there. Your heroism, your dedication, your concern for kids, and their innocence, for parental rights, for inclusivity, for the facts about kids who are exposed to different varying sexual activity and the ability to change back and forth. Brenda, for your detailed analysis of all of these curriculums. And Nana, what a great job that you did explaining the legal aspects. And Deborah, I love you. You're great. We've known each other for quite some time, and we share a lot with what you talked about today. Having safe schools and creating an environment for kids through personal relationships. And Dr. Lee, thank you You're a world famous person who came to little old Orange County. You gave of your time. You didn't get paid for this, but we think and honor you as a man of integrity and a man who talks about science, and you have given us a lot of information. So in wrapping up the meeting tonight, we have to change the tape. So we have to take a hard break at this time. It'll probably be about 10 minutes. For those of you who want to stay around and give us your public comment, if you can come up here and talk to Nina, because we want to get you, and we'll stay to 10 if that's necessary, even later. But otherwise, I want to thank you all. We're going to take a hard 10-minute break. God bless you all.
All right, folks, we're on break now, and what's happening is they're going to take public comment. The reason I haven't been talking is because this meeting has been underway for about an hour, hour and a half, and what's going on here is we've now got a break where they're going to change the tape. We're going to get ready to hear from the public. What's going on is nothing more than the beginning of the acclimation to the lowering of the age of consent. This curriculum is designed to corrupt children. This curriculum is being rolled out based on fraudulent pretenses by the ACLU. And the school districts are cowering to the legal bullying, the illegal legal bullying by the ACLU, ladies and gentlemen. What's happening is the ACLU is telling these school districts that they've got to comply and they've got to roll this out. And the problem is they're being lied to and they're afraid of lawsuits. These school districts would rather spend the money on iPads and Wi-Fi routers than attorneys to fight this. And now they've got a room full of pissed off people that are sick and tired of having this stuff rammed down their kids' throats. And to be honest with you, I'm not very happy about this either. I would much rather be at home with my family. I would much rather be at home having my dinner after working all day, but instead I gotta sit here and I gotta listen to what is unbelievable. I know a lot of you don't have the patience to sit through hours of this stuff, and I know a lot of you will end up watching this eventually as it comes up again. But there were some amazing points here made tonight, folks, and some of those points bear mentioning. They are rolling this out with medically inaccurate information that is putting these children in harm's way, at risk of disease transmission, of mental illness, of lowered life expectancy. And this is all in the names of tolerance training, ladies and gentlemen. This is all in the name of civil rights. And the American Civil Liberties Union, their attorneys have written boilerplate letters that have gone to all these school districts, kind of like what happened after 9/11 when the legislature at the federal level was forced to pass the Patriot Act without reading it. That's exactly what's going on in these school districts. They're trying to ram this stuff through, and they're trying to get people to go along with this. Most of these parents have no idea what's going on. Their kids don't talk to them. They're at home playing video games. The parents are working all night. Some of the parents are working 2 and 3 jobs. And these school district officials making $150,000, $200,000 a year for rolling this stuff out are just sitting back going along for the ride. This meeting tonight was an informational meeting, and it was designed to air the concerns of both sides of this argument. And it just so happened that the other side of the table did not want to come to the table tonight, folks. We had some medically accurate information here that clearly it unequivocally proves that what is being taught to children in some of these schools is child abuse, and it is putting children in harm's way. I want to know if the law is bipolar. I'm going to try to step in here because we got a pastor here. We got a pastor here. I'm going to break in on this conversation.
Enforce the law, because in fact you're going to break it while you're trying to enforce it.
I don't want to do that kind of peacefully.
We got a pastor here. Ladies and gentlemen, the body of Christ is not about collecting money and working 1 day a week. You want to tell us who you are and what you're all up to here tonight?
My name is George Roscoe. I'm a pastor at...
Speak a little louder because it's loud in here.
My name is George Roscoe. I'm a pastor at New Hope Christian Ministries in Placentia. And I'm here tonight because I'm here to protect my children and all children and stand up for parental rights against a very bipolar and I chose that word very, very carefully, a bipolar law, because we have just heard from experts tonight that if you try to comply with the law and teach comprehensive sexuality education, you're actually breaking it, because there are no studies that prove that it works. And so it has to be evidence-based, but yet it has to be comprehensive sexuality education. They don't match, they don't go together.
Now your family's from Romania.
Correct.
And I watched you in a school district meeting have a book that you were forced to read because you didn't want to go along with something in the Fullerton Joint Union High School District a number of years ago in English class. Tell the audience what the Fullerton Joint Union High School District tried to do to you when you were in high school.
Well, they forced us to read a book, which I didn't want to, because it had bestiality scenes in it.
I want to stop you right there. It had bestiality scenes in it. This was required reading in the Fullerton Joint Union High School District. To the best of your knowledge, is that book still on the shelves in their library?
I did not go to their library to check, but I did go to the Orange Public Library to check, and it's in there.
So the school districts are teaching bestiality, ladies and gentlemen. This man was attempted to have been taught bestiality by the Fullerton Joint Union High School District administration. Tell us what happened when you refused to read and do a book report on this book.
Well, I was punished because I was given two other optional books to read, two other choices. One was War and Peace, 1,300 pages. The other one was Paradise Lost, which is written in very old English that I don't think most adults today can understand. And so as a 12th grader, I was supposed to be able to read that and do a book report on that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard somebody who is a Christian pastor who went to a high school. Was it a Fullerton High School, Troy High School? What?
It's a Buena Park High School.
It was a Buena Park High School, ladies and gentlemen. He was forced to read a book. How many years ago was this?
2002.
In 2002, he was forced to read a book on bestiality. He refused to do it, and they gave him two choices, War and Peace, and the other one was?
Paradise Lost.
And thousands of pages.
Yes.
So, folks, if you think that we're speaking in hyperbole or exaggerating here tonight, I'm here to tell you that 16 years later, after they were teaching bestiality in the Fullerton Joint Union High School District, and by the way, who's the superintendent at that time? Was it George Giacaris, by any chance?
I don't.
Who was the teacher?
Do you
remember the teacher?
As a 12th grader, you don't know much about how things
Is
run.
that teacher still working for the school district?
I don't know.
Do you remember the teacher's name?
I will not disclose it.
Okay, that teacher should be fired, ladies and gentlemen. She should have her pension stripped away, and she should be arrested for child abuse. That is my position. What do you think is going to be the outcome of this? We've been told by Mr. Bedell that we need to influence the legislature. I mean, isn't the legislature the problem?
Correct. In fact, the legislature as a supermajority Democratic Party, and so they were able to pass this law without, any obstruction, so to speak. We really need to elect government officials with biblical values, because if we don't, this can continue, and we can just continue fighting endlessly as parents. We'll get nowhere.
And it is getting old. I want to thank you for taking the time. And your church is, once again?
New Hope.
And where's it located?
Placentia.
Visit him on Sunday, folks. He's worthy of your attendance.
My experts, if we need to catch a plane, if you have to go, please don't feel like you have to stay. But we do have 3 public comments, and again, it's 2 minutes, and do you have the name?
I do. George Rosca.
Can you hear some?
Followed by.
We're going into the public comment section, ladies and gentlemen.
Followed by Terrence
Arthur Shaper right here. All right, here we go, folks. We'll get into the public comment section.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is George Rosca, and I will not belabor on topics that were already covered, which is plenty tonight. But I do want to reinforce something that was mentioned here tonight, but wasn't necessarily cited from another source that I think will reinforce comprehensive sexuality education and its inability to live up to the promises that it states. The United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO, concluded in its 2018 revision of the International Technical Guidance on Sexuality Education. It states on page 28, and I quote, "It is difficult to draw strong conclusions about the impact of CSE on biological outcomes such as STI or HIV rates, as there are still relatively few high-quality trials available, particularly those that take a longitudinal approach," end quote. And then it cites 3 authors, Spawner 2014, Lopez 2016, and Oranganje 2009. How is it that probably one of the organizations that promotes CSE worldwide is coming to the conclusion that there is no evidence behind it to support it? And yet, over and
It's an
over,
agenda,
the
ladies
6
and gentlemen.
curriculums that are state-approved by ASHWAG, Advocates for Youth, and then also the Future of Sex Education, which publishes the national sexuality education standards here in America, keep on citing and stating that CSE works.
Thank you, sir.
Pam, followed by Terrence Bates.
I'm a mom of 2 young children. They're not yet in school, but and I'm coming from a communist country where, unfortunately, you can see on the market magazines women naked. You can see on TV women without bras, only in bikini, presenting shows. You don't see it in California. You don't see it in the United States. You can see these things on TV. But I'm horrified to see that this kind of pornography is taught in school. I mean, I'm horrified. I don't understand how anybody in school, the teachers, I mean, this is about you that are in school and you are forced to present this. And I'm sure you don't agree, you didn't know at your age about this kind of things, and you don't even know how to present them to your kids. Most parents are okay with the sexual education because they don't know how to speak about these things with their own kids. They have no idea what gender fluidity is. So all these curriculums sent back to the parents to talk at home about, but they don't know what to talk about. I think all the problem would be solved if they would put a policy that would call the parents into an education and to give them the skills to actually present all these things at home to their kids, not to teach the kids. The kids will not educate the parents at home. The parents should educate the kids with things and tools that the school should actually put in their hands. So I think that would change all the vision about all this craziness that's happening. And I don't know if you guys can put a policy that can help educate the parents. Invite them at the meeting and invite them to be actually taught tools and skills to teach this at home. And it would eliminate the bullying because everybody would present all this in their own culture, in their own manner to their kids, and will bring them to narrow it down to their own understanding. And it will not make one fit all. It will be put it through the eyes of the parents. I think that would solve the issue. If you're asking for it to solve an issue.
Thank you.
Terrence Bates, followed by Maria Albright.
Good evening, honorable, and might I add, elected board members. And thank you for the expert panel and these concerned citizens that are here. My name is Terrence Bates. I live in Fullerton. I have 4 kids. One is in college now. He went through the public school system and he's successful in college. I have 3 other kids that are still in the public school system. And I have to tell you, they're confused. 2 high schoolers and 1 elementary school son. The CHIA sex education agenda has been forced upon parents and children for 2 years now. This law passed in California by the leftist legislature, who on a consistent basis passes laws without our knowledge, making sure those who oppose this agenda have no choice. Why is it that we are catering to a certain group of kids and parents? That seems unfair and biased. Since this immoral agenda is forced on Californians, then I propose that the California State Board of Education actually use our taxpayer funds in a wise way and implement an online curriculum for all parents with all children of all genders and give us parents the choice of what topics to discuss with our children, which will be a true way to opt out. On the flip side, it is sad to say, but the facts are that if someone wants to learn and teach perversion, they will figure out a way, any way to do so, even the parents. But at least this way, we can protect the children and parents who do not need or want this perversion taught to them in the classroom.
Right.
Also, we can make our voices heard about the future of California's education system, specifically about CHIA, by voting on November 6th for John Cox for governor, who opposes Thank you very much.
Stop voting Democrat. Well said.
Maria Albright, followed by Joe Embriano.
Good evening, organized. Thank you for giving us, all members of the board, and all the people here. I am a mother, and I'm concerned about not only my children, but all the children here in the United States and all the world. Because I feel the love of a mother, not only for my children, I care for all the children in the world. And I come this night, not in my name, but in the name of the Most High. Who rules who rules all over us all, and one day each of us in different time going to be in His presence to be accountable for all of these. Believers and unbelievers, poor and rich, men and women, out of authority, alike want to be accountable. Can be today, tomorrow, we don't know when. Our founding fathers of this country were strong believers, and we know that, all of us. We are standing in a land that has been built at cost of thousands of lives. This program is clear, destructive for our children, families, and the supreme law of this the Constitution of our country. I'm going in a rush because I want to say everything. We're talking about freedom, but I don't think we have freedom anymore. We don't have freedom. The government is taking our place as parents. The children belongs to us. God entrusted to us, as parents, not to the government, not to the state, not the OCDE, not anybody. We are the only accountable people before God and men of our children. When a teenager gets in trouble, what happens? The police come and the parents are accountable for anything that teenager does. Why the government is the one that has to do all that?
Your time is up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Embriano, followed by Bethany Guajardo.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Embriano. I run the FullertonInformer.com website. I also run WiFiDangers.com website and the Fullerton Informer YouTube channel. I want to thank you folks for coming out here tonight. I didn't hear anybody call to task the legal staff of the County Board of Education or the subordinate districts to call the ACLU out on their criminal behavior in this manner, because that's what I believe it is, in my opinion. We have medically inaccurate curriculum that's been rolled out, and the districts have been threatened with legal action by the biggest bully of them all. And the children, as we speak, are in harm's way from a variety of agendas. This is an agenda. Make no bones about it, ladies and gentlemen. This is an agenda to corrupt children and to lower the age of consent. And at the ultimate core of this is a satanic agenda that goes to the highest levels of power in the world government. There's a reason why we have a gold tassel around these flags in here. There's a reason why your names are in all caps on your driver's license. And there's a reason why people like me and you and all the rest of you are here on a work night fighting this. Because this system has a satanic influence to it that is very deep and it's very powerful. And the only solution to cure this problem is the power of Jesus Christ and the power of the Holy Spirit of God. And in the book of Ephesians in the 6th chapter, it talks about the forces of spiritual wickedness in high places. This is not about anti-bullying at all, ladies and gentlemen. My mom used to drop me off at 3:30 in the morning at the Balboa Pier when I was 12 years old to go fishing. And I was raised by farm workers out there fishing, and I used to fill their buckets with fish because they didn't have the money to buy the rods, and I had a paper route. And I want to tell you something. None of those men were on Viagra looking at me like a sex object. And I want to tell you, our society has degraded into that, and you need to stop being a part of it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm actually not a parent, but I am a concerned citizen, and as a millennial, since that seems to be a trending thing, and since apparently being brown is giving me more street cred, I'm just going to tell you right now that what you guys are, first of all, I'm just glad actually that this is even being held as a public forum, that we can actually debate it and actually come against it. And I noticed that there is a huge mob of kids and transgendered just protesting, and I noticed that it was clearly just a superficial thing. They just want the attention. They're not in here sitting down and actually voicing their opinions. And you guys, I completely agree with Joe. I agree with a lot of the things that a lot of people aren't aware of or don't want to talk about, and that is that there is a satanic agenda. And I am sick and tired of just watching our everything be infiltrated. And as elected officials, I really pray and I hope that you guys, whatever happens behind closed doors, we can all only guess, God knows, what happens with these different elected officials who pass these laws that are completely inappropriate and shocking, and it's satanic. And maybe that sounds odd to some of you that don't believe in God, but I'm going to say that whether or not you believe in God or in Jesus, there is clearly at the highest levels, even if you're an atheist, it is Luciferian, and this agenda is very clear. You know, there's a lot of talk about bullying, and to me that's just an emotional distraction from the fact that parents are not being told about things that they can't opt their kids out of because it's bullying to say that transgenderism is wrong or whatever. But holy crap, like, how is this even a topic? How are we even having this conversation? The fact that I don't even have kids, and I can see how incredibly sick and wrong it is. And I completely agree. This is all an agenda to lower the age of consent and to try to act like kids actually have the ability to think and understand what sexuality is. They don't. There are 3-year-olds that want to grow up to be a dinosaur. You know, like, this is just insane. So, thank you.
Shopper? Okay. Everybody gets it wrong the first time. All right. Yes, my name is Arthur Shopper. I am here in my capacity as the organization director for Mass Resistance. Right. We are the international pro-family group that makes a difference. We have chapters all over the country, all over the world. We are fighting this scourge in Chile, in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, and soon to be South Africa. Orange County parents, you are not alone. I do want to say, however, I think tongue-in-cheek, I am pro-LGBT. I am pro-life, I am pro-God, I am pro-Bible, and I am pro-truth. And the fact is, with all this talk about inclusion, we seem to have forgotten something: truth and error. And I don't want truth and error mixed together as they can be the same and coincide. I'm going to say some very pithy truths that seem to alarm people. Transgenderism is a mental disorder, okay? It's not a civil right. There's something wrong with that person. That's not hatred. That's speaking the truth. And as a child, when I did bad things, I wanted my parents to tell me the truth so I didn't harm myself further. That's the whole point of an education. Homosexuality, this is an emotional disorder. Ms. Haynes, your commentary is excellent, and I thank you that you had the courage to say this. We need to hear these commentaries further. You're not born gay. There's no evidence for this. Transgenderism is not something to tolerate, accommodate, or enable. Furthermore, all this talk about bullying, please, look, I got picked on as a kid. You fight back. You stand up and you speak the truth. I get bullied every day being a Trump supporter, but I don't cry about it. I stand up and fight back. I had my hat stolen in Berkeley. I'm not going to stop fighting for freedom of speech. The biggest bullies are the LGBT bullies. And I'm fed up, and we're fighting back. That's what you do. And that's not hatred to speak the truth on that matter. Another thing, on my shirt, it says, taking back the rainbow. That's what we're doing. Let's have a lesson plan on that. And last thing, let me finish really quick. In Torrance, we have a large Japanese community. Why don't we teach Boys' Day and Girls' Day just like they do in Japan? I want to pass this out to you. And I want to say, I'm glad I won't have to complain to the DA because you gave us public comment. I made the request and you all asked for it and you got it. We the people have the power. Thank you. I'll hand it to you to pass it. Thank you.
Okay.
Ken, there was someone who didn't check in with me. We have another speaker, Rosemarie Avia.
Oh, Rosie.
I'll come fast, I know you're all tired.
Speak today.
I'm a mother of 5 children who grew up in public schools. I was school board member in Santa Ana for 17 years, and I've spent the last 20 years running nonprofits to serve inner city kids, so I'm familiar with a lot of the vulnerable children in our community. I really liked your statement about, okay, what's after the hearing, what's the action, and also yours about transparency. And so that prompted me to come speak because I think that, you know, there was an opinion circulated by the board that their parents can't opt out. And I know somebody mentioned it's confusing whether parents can or cannot opt out. If there's one thing that could be done is that we could bring clarity to that. And the school districts need to know whether they can have an opt-out policy. And so I recommend that if you feel you have the power to decide some things, and I know you're supposed to guide the districts with some of these state policies. If you feel parents should opt out, I think you should either state, yes, you can under this law, or you can create your own policy in your own district to opt out, but that you should give transparency and clarity to that. And that would be minimum, but that's not enough. Because now that you've heard, you've seen all these examples of this curriculum, the curriculums that are being recommended are not medically accurate, and they promote risky behaviors. Now you have to decide, do you believe that or not? If you believe the children are being taught lies or things that aren't correct, and they're being encouraged to do things that are harmful to them, I think you have a duty and a responsibility as an educational leader to say, no, to identify transparency, identify which curriculums are not medically accurate and are risky. And you have this fine panel to study these issues who can help you create that list. I was elected official. I know Aldenar's in here.
Your time is up.
I know. All right. The third thing is if districts have discretion, you should let them know they have a discretion not even to teach sex ed or to teach and emphasize one of the elements or not.
Thank you,
Rosie. Please give clarity. Thank you.
For everybody out there, Rosie and I have a dear friend. She is actually my mentor. She's the one who taught me, not that I know a whole lot now, but she is the queen. She is my mentor and a good friend. Okay.
Courageous leadership.
So as we are done here, we're at the point where we're making the motion to leave, and so I say thank you. Good night. May God bless you and have a safe journey.
All right, folks, we'll just adjourn this meeting.
You actually don't need a...
Once again, we're at the Orange County Board of Education, and at topic right now, on the heels of AB 2943, the Bible ban that almost went through, we're having a situation develop where we are now being faced with teaching children absolute, excuse me, ladies, absolute lies, medically inaccurate curriculum.
What's your Fullerton website?
TheFullertonInformer.com. TheFullertonInformer.com.
What's the other one? Didn't you say two?
Wi-Fi-dangers.com.
Didn't you have another one or no?
Yeah.
I'll check another.
FullertonInformer.com. Wi-Fi and Wi-Fi-dangers.com. Drop something here, pal. Anyway, folks, so what we have here is we have the vision of the Orange County Department of Education, where we will lead, Orange County students will lead the nation in college and career readiness and success. That is to ensure that all students are equipped with the competencies they need to thrive. And their values is dedicated to the fundamental human values of respect, responsibility, integrity, and professional ethics. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now. You cannot have professional ethics and integrity if you're teaching children lies, if you're using curriculum that is medically inaccurate, if you're bowing to the pressure of a legal organization that's actually the biggest bully on the face of the earth, the ACLU. But here we have a claim to provide a safe, caring, and courteous professional environment that fosters collaborative work and individual development for our employees. Now notice it doesn't say safe, caring, and courteous and professional environment for the children. What it has stated here is that it does exist for the employees. And I will tell you that aside from everything that's going on with this curriculum, the weaponry that has been deployed in the classrooms, the microwave systems, the iPads, they are being used to sterilize these children. So they're being mentally molested by this curriculum, and their bodies and brains are being destroyed by the microwave weaponry that has been rolled out as part of E-Rate and ConnectEd from the Obama administration. The Apple iPad is actually an infertility pad, ladies and gentlemen. And here we are standing in front of a claim by the Department of Education, and they are actually engaged in warfare against the children. Now, we have a majority on this Board of Trustees that is in the right. They decided to have this meeting and have a panel of experts here tonight. And they also invited the other side, the people that are pushing this agenda, and not one of them decided to participate in this. So it was a one-sided discussion tonight. But nonetheless, the other side was allowed to have the opportunity to come here. But folks, the deal is that we cannot allow our children to be taught things that aren't true. We cannot allow our children to be encouraged to engage in behaviors that are dangerous. And we cannot allow our children to be lied to by their teachers, by their principals, by their school district superintendents. The educational superintendent, the educational system is telling these children that it is okay to engage in these behaviors that actually increase the disease transmission and the overall poor health of the children. The school districts have an obligation. Folks, once again, we know that the school districts are pushing agendas. And one of the biggest agendas the school district is pushing is atheism, is secular humanism, is moral relativism. And of course, they're getting into a very gray and murky area that is covered by the waters of lowering the age of consent by corrupting the minds and exposing children to things that they are not capable of processing at the age at which it is being presented to them. Is there no shame, ladies and gentlemen? Is there no shame anymore? Do our children have a right to their innocence? How is it that the state can make all kinds of illegal, how is it the state can mandate all kinds of illegal laws such as sanctuary state policies and the like, and yet they expect and demand that the school district...
I think you said you have two Fullerton websites. Is it just the one Fullerton?
The FullertonInformer.com and Wi-Fi-dangers.com.
That's your only two websites?
I've got about 10 of them, but those are the two that are up and running.
Oh, okay.
Well, that was very good, your
thank you, sir.
presentation.
Compassion and character, ladies and gentlemen. These are teachers of the year. What kind of teachers are going to sit back and teach children medically inaccurate curriculum that endangers their health and safety? And by the way, what kind of teachers are going to allow children to continue to use microwave weaponry as a condition of receiving the education, while the studies are in that microwaves cause infertility and cancer, and yet they're being deployed in the classroom by force? I have it in writing from Robert Plecka, the Fullerton School District Superintendent, that my children cannot get an education in the Fullerton School District unless they use a wireless iPad. I have it in writing from the superintendent of the Fullerton School District. That is just one of the many issues, ladies and gentlemen. We have a major problem on our hands, and we have a tremendous response tonight from the community and from parents and from families and community members and community leaders. And it's extremely important. It's extremely important, folks, that all of us are awake and all of us are aware of what is being done. We cannot sit back and be silent and let people continue the lies. We cannot continue to let these people do this to our children. It's been quite an evening tonight at the Orange County Department of Education, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to leave the building right now. And I want to let you know that we'll be up live tomorrow morning, and we'll continue to bring the developments as they unfold on this battle for our children's minds, folks. This is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, signing off, and thank you for hanging in there for this very long and arduous meeting tonight.